hell's going to break loose?
The rationale right now is that everything that the Trump presidency has done will boost economic growth. And we have seen second quarter GDP just being revised up to 4.2%. Now, the rationale here is that all of that will also help shrink the deficit.
Yeah, that's just wishful thinking. 4.2%, we had 4 quarters since 2010 with 4% or better. We had 11 quarters with 3% or better. And then 2 quarters later, it's down to 1 or hardly anything at all. The 4% was an anomaly. 1 point of that was due to trade pull forward and soybeans and all the rest of it. Second part of it was due to consumers spending money that the Uncle Sam was borrowing to put in their pocket. That's a one-time thing. There is no acceleration, and Trump, crazy, 10th year of a business expansion is driving the deficit to 1.2 trillion, 6% of GDP. This is never heard of. Yeah. This would be considered absolute sheer insanity by anybody who can remember anything more than 4 years ago or 4 weeks ago. I happen to be one of those, and I know this is nuts.
There's no question it's unprecedented, but let me ask you about one specific aspect of their approach. What they say is because particularly they've expensed capital investment, that we're going to get an inflow of capital investment, which does seem to be turning around, that will actually increase productivity and help us grow our way out of it. What's wrong with that theory?
Yeah, well, the numbers don't possibly work. We're taxing 16.5% of GDP. That means that for every dollar of revenue loss, you got to have $7 of new GDP growth. It's not going to happen. Besides that, look at the orders numbers for CapEx, less aircraft and defense. You know, they're more or less flat. There isn't any. You know why? Because when interest rates were driven so low, any project that could get financed got financed. In other words, there isn't a pent-up demand for investment capital because taxes were too high. This is just a gift to Wall Street, to the 1% and the 10% who are getting massive stock buybacks. This year, there's going to be $2.5 trillion of stock buybacks, dividends, and M&A deals. That's where all the money went. It didn't go into investment. It didn't go into growth.
David, thank you so much, I think, for a fairly sobering...
Man, he is such a genius. Please follow his YouTube channel. He worked for Ronald Reagan. David Stockman, he was the budget director. But he's right. I mean, Trump is making America look great, but I do feel like, and like I said, I don't think it's his fault necessarily, because obviously Obama had a lot to do with this. But what he's doing is he's just delaying the inevitable, and the crash will come. And when it does, I do feel like cryptocurrency will be one of the better asset classes to hold. Now, if you've never invested, I do highly recommend that you subscribe to this channel, and I will be covering more news and posting information on how to learn to invest in crypto. But I recommend that you start very, very small. You just make small transactions in the beginning and spend most of your time on YouTube and the internet educating yourself. But it doesn't look good for the U.S. economy long term, but short term we're okay, and that's why crypto prices might be down for another year or two, but it's going to come back, especially once the United States economy starts to have its day of reckoning. And like I said, they can keep kicking it down the can, so that's why I don't think anyone should be predicting whether it's this year, next year, or maybe 3 years, because there's always ways where central bankers can get out of it or push it down even more. But eventually it will collapse, and that day is coming sooner than later. Let me know your thoughts on this, and I will talk to you guys soon.